We're shifting briefly. We're shifting off now from poetry back to literature. The author, and I'm sitting here with me, I have Amy James, who wrote the book Change, Amy Jones, sorry, my apologies here, Amy Jones, because I think it's the first time I'm meeting you. Change That Bind. Welcome, Amy, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah?
How are you?
Good, good.
All
I'm
right.
enjoying the wonderful get-together here with writers and authors and poets, and this is so rare, you know, this is a real wonderful occasion for this Spiceword Festival to happen, because this is what brings us together, and it exposes Grenadian authors and poets to the world, you know, because get such few of that throughout the year. So when we can celebrate it, I really enjoy this sort of things, you know. So Amy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am from St. Andrew.
Another, oh,
Yes.
just had another person. A lot of talent coming out of St.
Right,
Andrews
the
today.
St. Andrew. I've been writing for as long as I can remember. I probably started when I was around 8 years old.
Okay.
Yes, into poetry and then spoken word, and in 2019 I started writing a novel which I published then.
You published? Okay.
Yes.
Which novel is that?
Chains
Oh,
That
Chains.
Bind.
Oh,
Yes.
So this is your first book?
This is my first novel.
Novel, okay.
Right. Yes. So it is a Grenadian-based novel.
Right.
It speaks about our language, our culture, and a little bit about our beliefs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know we're going to talk about this right now, but what are the other books you have written?
All right. So in 2014, I wrote and published Beyond Fables Poetry. It is a collection of poems basically focusing on women, or Grenadian women, or
Right.
strong black women, and appreciating them for what they have done for younger ones in society. And over the COVID period, I wrote and published
What?
A to Z Odyssey.
In 8 months over the COVID
Yes.
period?
Yes.
So that's self-published?
Yes, it is.
Excellent. I was just talking about that earlier on, about young, you know, not young writers, but writers, period. You know, it is a time where you can self-publish yourself.
Yes.
And a lot of you are doing it. I'm so proud that we actually have an example here, ladies and gentlemen, of somebody who is self-published, you know, and within 8 months. That's fantastic. So what was that again, sorry?
It is the Odyssey. It's a poetry book, but it's kind of hybrid between a novel and poetry. It is written, as the letter says, A to Z. So there's a letter for there is a poem for every letter of the alphabet.
Oh,
and in it,
interesting.
it tells a story of the character the author speaks about,
Right.
and her challenges through relationships, and how it's affected by our culture as well, what we allow, our family backgrounds, and how it inevitably shapes us.
Okay, okay, beautiful. The new book now, which is Change That Bind. What is it about?
All right. So
Don't give away the
I'm
book.
not giving away
No
too
spoilers.
much. I'm gonna
Just
let you look at it and tell me what comes to mind when you see that cover.
Man controlling woman.
Man controlling woman.
That's what it looks like. She has the chain, and there is a guy behind, or the woman's controlling the man. Okay, now I see where the end of the chain is. Yeah.
But there's something else that our Caribbean people may notice when they look at it. Long white dress.
Largeabulous?
Ah.
Yes.
And if you look closely, you would see those footprints there.
Okay,
One
yes.
human foot.
That's right.
One cow foot.
Yes.
So it speaks about our cultural belief and superstitious stories that we used to hear growing up.
That's right.
Right. So there's a lot to hear in this about larger bliss and some other folklores that we've been hearing on the island of Grenada.
Excellent. This and the theme of the festival is folk tales.
Yes.
So this is a great opportunity. So is it many stories in one? Is it an anthology?
It's one.
One story. Okay. So I don't want to give away. Are you going to read some of it for us?
Of course.
Yes, I'm looking
Right.
forward to. You know, Angela is one of my favorite characters.
I know. All right. So I'm going to read from chapter 9.
Okay.
The chapter is entitled Larger Bliss. All right. You ever see a zombie? JJ asked his sisters. Petra looked at JJ and shrugged her shoulders. I hear Mommy say at a time she hear cousin Michelle say she catch Peter down the road in she house counting salt. Remember they say they used to put that day to catch them Ligger and Suku and them? What you find, Cherry? JJ asked intently as he stared at his older sister. I find it's true, Cherry responded. I tell all you already, I see a ball of fire shooting across the sky. It's a real zombie on this island, you know. I show all them islands and them in the Grenadian Isles, and maybe even in Caribbean too, they have something. The children continued their chatter, telling tales of the time they heard people in the village on other parts of the island of Grenada sharing stories of the creatures they had encountered. Of the many stories they shared, Carrie remembered the moment Danisha shared an experience her father had. It was a moonlight night in Solid Rouge, sometime in the 70s. 20-year-old Dominic had just left his girlfriend Marisha's house. Marisha lived in Solid Rouge at the west end of the island, and Dominic lived in Lons-sur-Sapin at the south end of the island, about 30 minutes walking distance. Mr. Dominic had just gotten his license, but he did not yet own a car, so he would walk to and from Marisha's house. The pair had been dating for over a year, and Dominic had promised to propose to Marisha as soon as he had accumulated enough money. On the night in question, Dominic left Solid Rouge around 9:30 and was journeying back to his home. It was not unusual for him to walk home alone. In fact, it was at those moments he spent time thinking about the love of his life, Marisha. About halfway through his journey, Dominic heard what sounded like shoe heel clicking behind him, and the sweet hum of a song he did not know. The sound was hard to miss. As he turned around, he noticed a young woman walking behind him. He had never seen her before and was unable to catch a glimpse of her face. Quite a night for a lovely young lady like you to be walking by yourself, he said, but she did not respond. Where you from? No response. Dominic figured that the young lady might have been afraid that a man ahead of her could attack her, so he left her alone. Again, Dominic looked back to see more of the young woman's attire and her physique being defined in the moonlight. He continued on his way and tried not to bother her. If Marisha was alone on the road and a young man was talking to her, he too would have not expected her to start a conversation with him. God forbid. Dominic continued walking, and for the last time, he felt compelled to ask the young woman if she was lost and needed help. He looked back to see her long black hair bouncing on the shoulders of her white dress that hugged her well-defined body. Although he was dating Marisha, he could not help but notice how good her silhouette looked. As the moon shone in the sky, he looked in her direction and asked, "Miss, you sure you don't need help?" No response. He looked ahead and again he turned around. It was almost like a compulsion. This time, she walked directly under the old street light before the St. Martin village, and the unthinkable was revealed. The woman wore a big brown straw hat that covered her face but revealed her jet black hair falling off her shoulders and onto her white dress that flopped on the ground, hiding what could have been kitten heels. Clop, clop, clop. It did not take Dominic long to realize that the woman behind him was not lost, but pursuing him in an effort to trap him, seduce him, and take his soul. Fear gripped Dominic, and he began to run, yelling as loudly as he could, "Ladja bless! Ladja bless!" The pace of what previously sounded like heels began to increase, just as quickly as Dominic sprinted away from the zombie. he knew there and then it was not shoe heels, but one cow foot accompanied by one human foot. Ladja bless! Ladja bless! Dominic continued to scream at the top of his lungs. In less than 2 minutes, the lights in the houses just a few meters away from him were turned on, and people came out into the streets. Just as would be expected, the jumbie, not interested in a crowd, but the man ahead of her, disappeared into the moonlight night, leaving Dominic panting uncontrollably and very much afraid. The villagers ran towards him with many questions and concerns. They gave him a glass of water and wanted to send him on his way. Yet, Dominic insisted that he was not going to walk the rest of the way alone. A welcoming family let him spend the night in their spare room until morning had dawned. Dominic was sure that if he had turned around to assist her, she would have seduced him and put him in a trance where he would have walked to the riverbank and drowned.
Yeah. Ladja bless. I grew up with those stories.
And I grew up hearing you
yes.
telling those stories.
So Ladja bless it's such a part of us. It's from the French patois, Ladja bless,
Yes.
meaning devil woman, right? And a lot of people don't really know when they talk about Ladja bless, what is Ladja bless? As you say, she's a tall woman, beautiful, impeccably beautiful. And she wears, and that's the whole thing. Some people have said that she has had a skeleton face, but no. But she has the reason why she entices men is because of her beauty. Exactly, So she has that beautiful face, but one side is covered. So we really never know what's on the other side.
Yeah.
Just like yours, exactly, always, right? So what happens is that she entices the men, and once the man looks at her or talks to her, she captures, as you say, she captures her soul, and they can't stop following her. So Ladja bless is a part of us, and folk. Have you ever seen a Ladja bless?
No, I have not. But I heard, like I said, that I listened to stories when I was younger.
Yeah.
I would listen to you on the radio.
Yeah.
But my dad also shared stories with me of what he heard.
Exactly.
So the character came from all those.
Yeah, and that's the magic about these characters, because they belong to us. They belong to the Grenada, the Spice Isle. And you can take these characters, if you know them, and put them into stories, like I did with Ladja bless and the baby, So it's not, you can start creating new stories, but using these different characters and start creating your own folk tales, So it's very, very important that we continue this legacy, and I'm so happy that I know I'm a young person, I know, that you're writing these folk tales, It's really, really a pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
So where can we get this book?
Okay, so presently it's online on Amazon if there's anyone in the States or
Okay, what's the name? Tell them the name.
Chains That Bind, so it's on Amazon. You can
By
buy
Amy
your
Jones?
copy. Yes, Amy J.W. Jones.
Yeah.
Buy your hard copy, or if you want an ebook, you can also get it on Amazon as well. And I have copies. I don't have them in stores, but if anyone needs, they can call me up or link me on any one of my social media platforms. I have bookmarks as well with all the information.
Excellent.
But we have here, if anybody here wants, it's on the table.
Exactly. We have most of the books here too, okay? Amy, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for being part of this incredible festival.
Yes.
God bless. Wish you all the best in the future. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Amy Jones, Chains That Bind. Okay, we just want to say this has been a wonderful, wonderful time. I think we're coming. Do we have 5 more minutes? We have 5 more minutes? Oh, great. Okay. Okay, we're going to wrap here. So anybody, just sort of the audience here, anybody would like to ask a question? And anybody would like to ask Amy a question? Or myself? Just, hello? Anybody like to ask a question? No? No questions? No questions means things are going really well. They're getting everything. Okay, so on this note, I'll tell you a little story, which we'll end with. And I will, yeah, okay. It's always nice to, since it's folk tales and stuff, and Amy will sit and I'll tell Amy this story like in the olden days. You see,
Yes.
we're sitting on our couch and thing, you know, and we have a little, you know, a little drink.
Missing some cocoa.
And some cocoa tea, some nice hot cook, some bakes and, yeah, like, you know, what's her name? It's booked a little bit of bakes and saltfish. But since we're dealing with the Ladja Bless, I'll tell you the Ladja Bless story. And, well, the first one is similar to your story.
Okay.
And growing up, I always, when I went up to the country, because my mom is from Birch Grove and my dad is from St. Andrews too, yeah, Keens Douglas. And we used to go up and spend time by my aunt, and so, because I grew up in Tongue, but I was the last kid in the family, so the rest, you know, all over. Grenville, and we grew up in Grenville. And storytelling was a big thing in the family. And I'm trying to get people to bring that back. Sit on the steps outside with your nephews, your nieces, your kids, whatever it is, and read these stories. And let them come up with stories. Let them create their own stories, you know. And Ladja Bless, and I do with Sukanya, Ligaru, Baku. You know what Baku is?
Yeah.
Baku is a little man in the bottle, right? And they say he's like a genie. And if you're walking through your land, cutting cocoa and you're cutting bananas, and you see a bottle, right, and it's corked, don't pick it up and open it, because in it might be a little man this size, and he's called a Baku. And they say if you open it, the Baku is going to jump out, and you have to feed him and clothe him for the rest of your life. I know some big ones walking around today. so that is Baku, right? And of course, we have Mama Glow. Mama Glow is the mermaid woman on the river with the long hair, you know, and the mermaid comb and stuff like that, you know. And Kribo, you know about Kribo?
Yes.
Kribo the snake. But I'll tell you the story about Ladja Bless and the baby. It was raining one night, thunder and lightning. I know Grenville, cocoa up there, you know, all the nutmeg is raining, it's thunder and lightning. And the only song you could have heard was the sound of a baby crying, right? Through the bushes and thing. And this song was coming from inside my grandmother's house. And Granny was sitting in front of a frightened little baby, rocking the baby and trying to get the baby to sleep. And she was singing, "Oh no, no, don't cry no more. The thunder is good 'cause it comes from the Lord. Don't cry no more, sleep my little one. Don't cry no more, sleep my little one." There was a knock on the door. All of a sudden, Granny said, "Who is it out there?" "It's just a little lady outside. Is it okay if I shelter the rain on your veranda?" Right away, Granny got suspicious, because what a little lady was doing way up in Granny's house in all this thunder and lightning. But Granny's good heart said, "All right, you could sit on the veranda until the rain eases up." There was silence. "I'm getting more wet outside. Is it okay if I come inside and shelter the rain?" The voice came through the jealousy as clear as a bell. Granny said, "All right, you could come inside and sit by the door." Very slowly, the door started to open, and the woman walked in. She said she was a little lady. The woman was tall like a young coconut tree. And she was wearing a wide brimmed straw hat that was covering part of her face. Yes, it was a face Granny had never seen in the neighborhood before. And she was dressed in a long gown right down to the bottom of the ground, covering her toes. And the bottom of the dress was wet and dirty from the red mud and all the rain outside. So Granny took a chair and she put it by the door. And the woman went down and she sat down by the door. And Granny went back to the crying little baby, never taking her eyes off the stranger. And Granny kept on singing, "Oh no, no, don't cry no more. The lightning is good 'cause it comes from the Lord. Don't cry no more, sleep my little." "Let me hold the baby for you a little while," the woman said. Granny said, "Thank you, but no thanks. It's quite all right." "Let me hold the baby for you. I am very good with children." Granny said, "I say thanks, but no thanks. What happened? You're deaf?" And right away, Granny started taking precaution, because Granny suspected it was a Ladja Bless. And what did Ladja Bless like to do? They like to ask the same question 3 times. And all of a sudden, the woman stood up. She seemed taller than before. And for the 3rd time, she said, let me hold the baby for you. I am very good with children. And Granny said, thank you. It's quite all right. The baby's okay in my arms. And all of a sudden, the woman stood up and she walked over to Granny and she looked at the baby and she looked at Granny and she smiled and she turned her back and she walked out the door. And by the time Granny ran to the door to see where that woman was going, she had disappeared like lightning. And the next morning, because of all the rain and the red mud outside, where the woman walked on the veranda and where she walked inside of Granny's house, there were footprints on the flooring. One human foot and
one cow foot.
One human foot and one cow foot. It was Elijah Bliss that had come to visit Granny that night. And if Granny had only given her the baby to hold, she would have disappeared with that baby like that. And I wouldn't be here telling you this story, because that little baby was me. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for being part of this, for sharing with us, and for us sharing, for all the wonderful authors that came out here tonight, and to Grenada Cultural Foundation for making this happen. This is the 10th year. I want to thank you all, and to thank Sherma, the CEO, Sherma Wells, Ms. Sherma Wells, for again making this happen every year. All the hard work, Donna Lynn, our stage manager, all the hard work, the wonderful crew, which is the crew here? GIS crew, thank you so much. From Party Grenada, right, for making this happen and sharing it with the world. Now, I am sending this out to you to share stories, sit down with your kids tonight, turn off the TV, forget COVID, forget Trump, forget everybody else, forget politics.